Hocus Pocus, but they Bo Eaton is the town prince. A handsome military hero with a tortured past. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to include a couple different things. It's gonna include my 5-star reads from the summer, and it's also going to include 10 books that are on my fall TBR. How many books did I rate 5 stars this summer? There were 7 books that I read this summer that I gave 5 stars to. A few of these you're gonna be like, what the heck? 5 stars? Yeah, 5 stars. The vibes were 5 stars, okay? This isn't all of them. A few of them I do not own physical copies. I read them on Kindle Unlimited. We're just gonna jump straight into it because I am so excited with my fall TBR. I want to be done with this so I can talk about those. Beach read. This was a reread. I don't want to talk too much about this book simply because you guys always hear me talk about this book. This is my soul book. I love it with my entire heart. It's by Emily Henry. I have a vlog on this book, but it does have spoilers in it. This is just one of those romance books where the connection between the characters is truly a connection. And while I love romance books where like the basis of it is smut, I also love romance books where like the basis isn't that. January and Gus in this book just had such a deep connection, and they're my babies. And I love them. Next up, we have Fourth Wing. This is an ARC copy of Fourth Wing. That's why I have a paperback version of it. With this being the first fantasy book in what is to be like a 5-book series, I was genuinely shocked with how good this book was. There's this girl named Violet who has kind of trained her entire life to be a scribe. Is it a scribe? A scribe. Once you like hit adulthood, you kind of go into like different quadrants. There's like the dragon riders, there's the scribe quadrant, there's all these other things. She's been training her entire life to become a scribe when last minute her mother, who is like in charge, she's like a general or something, I don't know. Her mom's like, you're not gonna be a scribe. And Violet's like, what the f? I'm itty bitty girl, reader girl, who is trained to be in a library my entire life, and now you're just telling me that I have to go be a dragon rider and train to become one of those? Do I look like I can do that? Her mom's like, I don't give a f. You can do it. It's kind of your typical fantasy book in that it's like a little small girl in the corner who is weak, who we will pick on her and beat her up, and she'll probably blow away in the wind. But she's gonna amount to something. And she's gonna do great things here because this is a fantasy book. So we're gonna make it happen. Also, Xaden, when you get attached, I'm actually kind of getting scared thinking about this. When you normally, good God, when I find myself getting attached in the first book of a fantasy series, it always comes and like f***s me later on. And with this being a 5-book series, I loved the characters in this, but I'm trying not to get too attached because I do not know how this is going to go. Okay, next we have the Mind, good God, there is something in my eyeball. Next we have the MindF series. I also don't shut up about this book. Lana Myers is a serial killer, and she randomly starts dating this guy who just so happens, he just so happens to be the FBI agent who is like head on her case. Like this FBI agent is hunting for the serial killer who he thinks is a man, but it's actually his little old girlfriend, Lana Myers. This is like a 5-book series all tied into one. So if you buy this cover on Amazon, it's like all of them included. But if you go on Kindle Unlimited, it's free on there. It's broken up into 5 different books. And at the end of each book, there is like a cliffhanger. The cliffhangers at the beginning of the first 2, I was like, oh my God. Now this is one of those books where it's like, is this a literary masterpiece? To each their own. To each their own. I have no idea. I can't answer that question for you, but what I can tell you is that it keeps you on your toes. It's so invigorating. It is very gory. If that's something that doesn't bother you, read it. Next we have Minx. I actually rated this like 4.5 stars after I read it. This is Sophie Lark's new release that came out back in June, I believe. But after thinking about it, I think I'm just gonna go ahead and give it 5 stars. I loved this book. Sophie Lark is one of my auto-buy authors, and this is my favorite of all of her books, and that's saying a lot. This is spice heavy. This might just be the spiciest book I have ever read as well. Blake is a sex worker in kind of the New York area, and she only takes 3 clients at a time, and they're always like wealthy men of Wall Street. And then Ramsey comes along and he's like, I want to be your only client. And she's like, that's not how it works with me. I always take 3 because if I just take 1, what happens if I get attached to them? And it kind of like f***s with my brain a little bit. And he's like, no, I want to buy all 3 spots. And she's like, no, but you can take 1 spot. And so he ends up becoming one of her clients, and it is just so good. Like, so good. The way Sophie Lark wrote their dynamic, I loved it. Loved it. Again, literary masterpiece, to each their own. Fun, can guarantee. Reckless by Elsie Silver. This is also a new release that came out this summer. I love Theo and Winter so much. I relate to Winter, who is the FMC in this book, on a deep level, mostly because she becomes a bitch when she gets overwhelmed, and I've never related to anything more than just that. They're kind of not necessarily enemies at the beginning of the book, but they just very much dislike each other. And you know, the veil between like love and hate, it's thin. So they end up having a one-night stand at the beginning of the book, and Winter becomes pregnant and ends up kind of having a secret baby. I don't want to say much more because I don't want to spoil anything, but needless to say, secret baby, pregnancy trope, which if you don't like the pregnancy trope, I've said it before, I'll say it again, what the f are you doing? Give it a shot. If you don't like it, you're just reading the wrong books. Trust me. I'm also gonna say that in about 3 minutes when I recommend another pregnancy trope book. Winter and Theo, their dynamic is adorable. The other tropes are small town, kind of grumpy sunshine. If you have read Flawless by Elsie Silver, which is the first book in this interconnected series, we see a little bit of Theo in that book, and then a few times in the books after that. He is just such a golden retriever boy, but he really comes into like a man, it feels like, in this book, and it was very, very hot to watch, so, or to read. Love Theoretically. This is one of those books where the vibes were 5 stars, man. I got this book in my book of the month package in July. I love this edition. It looks very scholarly. So if I take off the wrapping, I'm like, I'm a scholar. I am a woman in STEM. I love reading about women in STEM. Elsie, the FMC in this book, kind of fake dates different men for money. Doesn't do anything more than like a fake date. And the MMC in this book is her favorite client's brother. Jack, the MMC in this book, he's on the hiring team for a job that Elsie wants, and he like is low-key in love with Elsie the entire time. Not even. He's very interested, and you have to pay attention to the details to like recognize it, but the entire time Elsie's like, he hates me. And I'm like, girl, read between the lines. He doesn't hate you. You just need to pay attention a little more. Jack read Elsie like a book in this book, and it's almost like he was inside her head, and he would sometimes like say things to her, and I'm like, oh my god, if a man ever read me this well, I would barf and then run away, and you would never hear from me again. The last book that I rated 5 stars for the summer, this was actually a 6 out of 5 star book. It was that good, and it's Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonam Young. This is another pregnancy trope book. And this is another book where it's like, if you don't like the pregnancy trope, I recommend giving this a shot, because this can really like completely change your opinion. Bo and Win have like a one-night stand at the beginning of the book at a Halloween party, and then Win gets pregnant like immediately. When I'm about to describe this book, it kind of sounds very boring and bland, but you just have to trust me. You have to trust me. When Win finds out she's pregnant, she eventually goes and tells Bo like, hey, I'm pregnant. First off, his response is like, okay, well, how are you doing? He's not like, what the f***? Like, okay, no. Like, trying to make decisions for her. He's immediately like, how are you doing? Like, what can I do to help? Like, what are you thinking? And he's very focused on her, and that just means so much and tells me everything I need to know about this man. But the entire book kind of follows them being friends and having to go through this pregnancy, and that's about it. And when I say that, you're like, that just sounds boring. Like, why would I want to follow them being friends and like her just getting more and more pregnant? Trust me. They have that spice in the beginning, and then there's nothing until later on in the book. But again, trust me, please. I personally love friends to lovers, so it was just really cute to watch them like grow and grow and grow in their relationship throughout the entire book, and then all of a sudden be like, are you in love? I am in love. We are in love. That's like the worst description for a book. Ugh, whatever. Okay, well, those are all the books that I rated 5 stars for the summer. Now let's get into what I'm actually excited for this video. I have my laptop in front of me for the ambiance back here. Okay, now we're gonna talk about the 10 books that are on my TBR. 2 of these are not out yet. They're gonna be new releases. And then the other 8 are all out, so don't worry. We're gonna start with the new releases. First, we have Hopeless by Elsie Silver. This is just a given. I don't even know off the top of my head when this book comes out, but I'll put it on the screen sometime this fall. The book makes me giggle just to think about it. Okay, compose yourself. Good God almighty. I copied and pasted the excerpt into my notes app so that I can read it and we can dissect. This is a small town romance. I just talked about Reckless by Elsie Silver. This is the next and last book that is going to be in the Chestnut Spring series. And this one follows Bo Eaton, which is another Eaton brother. Who I'm in love with. He's... God! Stop giggling. This is how Bo is described in the first sentence of the excerpt. Bo Eaton is the town prince. A handsome military hero with a tortured past. Tortured past? You have hooked me already. I'm the outcast bartender, a shy girl from the wrong side of the tracks. He's 35 and all man, and I'm 22 and all virgin. He's also my fiance. Correction, my fake fiance. So we have some fake dating dabbled into this small town romance. I'm there. We start out as a bet. He doesn't believe that anyone holds my last name against me, so he offers me to prove his point. God, I'm such a sucker. It's a win-win. He gets a break from his concerned family's prying. Yeah, because he's a tortured hero and his family is concerned for him. And I get a chance to shed my family's reputation while I save up to ditch this small town. Honey, I have a feeling you are not gonna be ditching this small town. He says all I have to do is wear his ring, follow his lead, and pretend I can't keep my hands off him in public. Girl, this is a recipe for disaster! But it's what happens between us in private that blurs all those carefully drawn lines. It's what transpires behind closed doors that doesn't feel like I'm pretending at all. This engagement was supposed to be for show. This agreement, it has an end date. He once told me he'd never fall in love, and yet here I am, head over heels for my fake fiance. Girl, it sounds like you're in a pickle. Sounds like you're in a pickle. Elsie Silver is another one of my auto-buy authors. I'll read her grocery list and I'll be thrilled and excited and probably will be giggling like a little girl because it'd probably be good. All of the tropes, fake fiance, virgin, heroine, tortured hero, we already talked about that. Forced proximity. Of course there's gonna be forced proximity because they're engaged. Guys, good. This is gonna be so good. Age gap, duh. And lastly, who hurt you vibes. If there's a who did this to you in this book, Elsie, you're gonna have to pay for my hospital bills because there's gonna be a resurrection having to happen. Oh my God, I am so excited for this book. Okay, the next book that's on my fall TBR is called Grimstone by Sophie Lark. And I'm actually gonna pull up Sophie Lark's Instagram where she wrote like a little excerpt about, she's still in the writing process of this book, but she did mention that it's supposed to be coming out before Halloween. And it's going to be kind of like haunted vibes and mystery vibes. I know that there's this girl who moves into this like mansion that she's planning to redo or something with her brother, and the guy in the creepy mansion next door, it's kind of like, did he murder his wife? That's kind of the thought process. She's like, what's going on here? I think he killed his wife. And I'm like, oh, Grimstone excerpt. I had no choice. She gasped. Whoa, 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 whoa. I can't read this on the internet. This is why I can't read this excerpt on the internet. Let me find another one. I thought there was a more appropriate one. Oh wait, here it is. I can't read that one on the internet either. Good God almighty, where's the appropriate one? I swear there was an excerpt that wasn't sexual. Whatever, this is gonna be a dark, spicy romance. I'm excited. And I want to know if her neighbor killed his wife. What's the reasoning behind that? We're just going to give both of these number 3. Saving and Redeeming 6 by Chloe Walsh. I did a reading vlog over binding 13 and keeping 13. I've kind of been putting off reading the next two Saving and Redeeming 6 because one, these books are both going to be very emotional and I know they're going to wreck me and I haven't been in the mood for that. I've already been depressed and sad because it's freaking in a heat advisory and I'm not a summer girl and it's 107 degrees outside. I'm already crying because of the weather like once a day, so I can't add more tears onto my plate. Sad and emotional books just haven't been in the cards for me. However, I will be reading these this fall. If you don't know what this series is about, go watch my reading vlog on Binding and Keeping 13. It was spoiler free. There was a little bit of discussion about a few different scenes in Binding 13, but I feel like that would be a better way to figure out if you would enjoy the series rather than me just like telling you what it's about because it's kind of hard to describe. There's the romance aspect of it, but there's just so much more. And I don't know how to collectively describe that. The next 3 book recommendations that I have, I got them all from this TikToker named Heather, and her @ is My Friends Don't Read. And they're all kind of witchy book recommendations, which I feel like is perfect for September and October. So if you kind of want a witchy vibe, then write these 3 down because I have heard great things. The first one is the Ex Hex by Erin Sterling. The first review on Goodreads that I saw about this book is hocus pocus, but they intrigued. I am automatically interested. 9 years ago, Vivian Jones nursed her broken heart like any young witch would. Vodka, weepy music, and bubble baths, and a curse on the horrible... Oh, it's literally called the Ex Hex. Okay, so she's hexing her ex. I didn't get that from the title because I'm an idiot. You probably did. Whatever. Sure, Vivi knows she shouldn't use her magic this way, but with only an orchard hayride scented candle on hand, she isn't worried it will cause him anything more than a bad hair day or two. That is until Reese his name is Reese for one. His last name for 2 is Penhollow. Descendant of the town's ancestors, breaker of hearts, and annoyingly just as gorgeous as he always was, returns to the Graves Glen, Georgia. They live in the town Graves Glen. What should be a quick trip to recharge the town's ley lines. What the f does that mean? And make an appearance at the annual fall festival turns disastrously wrong. With one calamity after another striking Reese, Vivi realizes her silly little Ex Hex may not have been so harmless after all. Suddenly, Graves Glen is under attack from murderous wind-up toys, a pissed-off ghost, and a talking cat. Vivi and Reese have to ignore their off-the-charts chemistry to work together to save the town and find a way to break the breakup curse before it's too late. This sounds great. This sounds like Hocus Pocus, but they f***, and I am so excited! Next we have The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandonna. I might be mispronouncing that and I apologize if I am. This is another witchy book. I'm also going to read the excerpt for this one because why not? Why not? You can skip if you really don't want to hear it. As one of the few witches in Britain, Mika Moon knows she has to hide her magic, keep her head down, and stay away from other witches so their powers don't mingle and draw attention. And as an orphan who lost her parents at a young age and was raised by strangers, she's used to being alone and she follows the rules, with one exception, an online account where she posts videos pretending to be a witch. She thinks no one will take it seriously, but someone does. An unexpected message arrives begging her to travel to the remote and mysterious nowhere house to teach 3 young witches how to control their magic. It breaks all of the rules, but Mika goes anyways and is immediately tangled up in the lives and secrets of not only her 3 charges, but also an absent archaeologist, retired actor, 2 long-suffering caretakers, and Jamie. Wait, I thought that was all going to be one person, but it's not. I'm assuming Jamie is the MMC. The handsome and prickly librarian of Nowhere House. This is a librarian? The handsome and prickly librarian of Nowhere House would do anything to protect the children. And as far as he's concerned, a stranger like Mika is a threat. An irritatingly appealing threat. Ah! As Mika begins to find her place at the Nowhere House, the thought of belonging somewhere begins to feel like a real possibility. But magic isn't the only danger in the world, and when a threat comes knocking at the door, Mika will need to decide whether to risk it all. Wait, I totally read that wrong. Mika will need to decide whether to risk everything to protect a found family she didn't know she was looking for. I'm intrigued. He's a librarian. She's a witch. The last witchy book that's on my TBR is Autumn of the Grimoire by J.L. Vampa. I don't really want to read all of this excerpt, and I didn't before adding this to my list. The cover just looks really cool. The first sentence says, "Some witches cast spells, others slay kings." Alrighty. 4 more books that are going to be on my TBR, and one of them is a reread. If We Were Villains. I was recommended If We Were Villains because I read The Secret History last year, and a bunch of people told me that I would probably love this since I loved that book, and The Secret History is very much fall vibes. I didn't hear anything about this book until January of this year, and I was kind of past like reading my Dark Academia fall vibes books, so this will be a read. I have read the excerpt multiple times and I still don't know how to describe it. So we're just going to describe it: mystery, thriller, Dark Academia vibes, and is recommended to read if you like The Secret History. Next, we have The Night She Disappeared by Lisa Jewell, and I actually own this book. I read one of Lisa Jewell's books a few reading vlogs ago. Lisa Jewell writes thriller mystery books, perfect for the fall. But the thing that I like the most about her writing is it's not the type of thriller that makes you super anxious the entire time, like Frida McFadden's books. Those books like keep your heart racing and keep you on edge. While there is a little bit of suspense in her writing, it's nothing too crazy, and it's very mild, which I enjoy. The main character in this book moves into a cottage that like backs up to the estate that used to belong to these 2 people that go missing. One day the main character is like going for a walk around the area around the estate, and she like stumbles upon a like spot that says "dig here," which is like super creepy, and then I'm assuming she digs there and then finds out and like uncovers some information about the couple that went missing, and then all of it unravels from there. I just read Once Upon a Broken Heart a couple weeks ago, and the Caraval series wasn't going to be on my TBR. However, my book friend Yulani actually mailed me this book, and it's annotated. The thing I liked the most about Once Upon a Broken Heart was how unique the fairy tale writing was, and I think I'm gonna get the same aspects of that in this book. Stephanie Garber just does like a really great job of adding like her own spin on fairy tales. Other than the fairy tale-ness of it, I don't know anything about it. The last book that's on my TBR for the fall is actually a reread, and it's Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. This is one of those books that I always recommend to people, and this is a 5-star read for me. I read it for the first time this past year, read it for a second time in January of this year, read it for a third time in March of this year. I love this book and I love this series, and it's a very hit or miss series. A lot of people will start this book based on my recommendation and DM me and be like, "What the fuck, I hate it." You're valid, okay? When I say hit or miss, I mean hit or miss. I say give it a shot, but if you start it and you don't like it, you're not alone. So many people do not like it as well. I will say the second time that I read it, it was even better than the first. So maybe give it 2 chances. Very much Dark Academia vibes. It's based in Yale, and there's like these underground secret societies, and Alex, the main character, is one of, is she the Virgil? No, she's the Dante. Alex, who is Dante, and her Virgil, they are kind of in charge of making sure all of the magical societies like don't do anything off track or crazy, and they just kind of keep everybody in check. Her Virgil, Darlington, goes missing. So the entire time there's like a murder throughout this book, she's trying to take care of all the societies and keep them in check while trying to figure out where Darlington went, and then also trying to figure out how this murder is tied to everything else that's going on. I love the storyline, I love the vibes, I love the characters. I love this book. And if you do as well, I will give you a kiss on the lips. It is my favorite. But if you don't like it, I understand. Those are all the books that are on my TBR for the fall. There's definitely more books that are coming out, like the second book in the fourth wing. I didn't include every single book that I'm wanting to read this fall, but these are just the main ones. And if you add them to your TBR and you read them, let me know how they are. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video, my 5-star reads of the summer and my fall TBR, and I will see you guys next week.